Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm so excited to bring you a special guest. We are on this 5-day challenge to break through weight loss resistance. And, we've talked about inflammation, we've talked about toxins, we've talked about all the hormones of weight loss, including insulin resistance. And we're just really trying to get to the root cause of why you can't lose weight. And that is really the main philosophy of functional medicine. And that's why I'm so passionate about this practice and also bringing you my guest, Katy Rose, who is also a colleague and a functional medicine coach, health coach extraordinaire. She's got a really cool Instagram feed called a Smidge A Day, which I think says it all, right? It's what we do every day that counts. And you will love her. You will love her sunny personality and just her perseverance in her own journey of weight loss. She has been able to lose 90 pounds and keep it off for the last 10 years. So I want to introduce to you Katy Rose. Thanks for
Good
coming.
morning. Thank you for having me. That was quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, I feel very fortunate to have met you. You're an inspiration to me, and I want you to share your story with my community and hopefully beyond, because it is a story that needs to be heard. And I know that someone will hear this and be inspired to really get healthy and make the changes they need to reach their health goals and their weight loss goals. But we know that, they kind of go hand in hand. Once you start losing the weight, you just start feeling so good.
Yeah. It's
So
that
do you want to
time
share
for
what?
yourself.
Yeah. Can you, why don't you, I'm just going to give you this time to share your story. And I'm just really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, ReNee. It's my honor. So it's one of those things that it's kind of a big story and where to begin. And I know ReNee had asked that I go, give kind of the full perspective and take the time for the deep dive to share where and how this all came about. So, I think it's important to honor and recognize that everybody has their journey and their story. And I think that where I sit now in my life and a philosophy that I have really attached to is that our trauma can become and stay trauma if we live in trauma. But if we view that trauma as an opportunity for information and knowledge and growth and empowerment, then it can become our wisdom. So, this story, I think for me, really is the story of allowing traumatic events in history to become your seed of wisdom. And when you're able to do that, then you're able to take what is yours, take that opportunity. So ReNee had early on asked me to kind of give a little background. Rural Oklahoma, very much the Bible Belt, very much, behave like a nice girl, do as you're told. Definitely an impoverished food community, grew up on government commodities, environment that included sexual abuse when I was very young, copious amounts of physical abuse throughout my youth. And then because of some psychological issues around my parents and my family, I was also in a situation where it was a Munchausen by proxy condition, where that means that they get you sick to make you better. And so I was consuming my whole childhood copious amounts of antibiotics, laxatives at a very early age, diuretics at a very early age. By the time I was 13, I was full-blown bulimic all the time. Until I was about 23 to 26 was kind of the range of working on repairing that and stopping that storyline. The damage that was done to my gut microbiome, my body, my emotional state, emotional eating, food addiction, extreme food addiction. It became, by the time I was in my 20s, and this was when I was trying to stop being bulimic, I just couldn't stop consuming. And every waking hour, minute was a story of food guilt, food pursuit, or food consumption. And I ballooned up to 240 pounds. And I don't think any woman should ever be 240 pounds, but I'm 5'6". And for some reason, people think that, knowing your height matters. And I'm like, well, even if it's 5'8" or 5'10", I shouldn't be 240 pounds. But I ballooned up to that weight. And, it's interesting because when you're in that state and you're completely consumed by food, the depression is there, the body confidence issues are there, getting dressed, putting on clothing, going out into the world, starting Monday after being, held up in your house all weekend long. Monday and putting on clothes and going into the world and working is a overwhelming experience. And, then you find yourself spiraling into depression and a little bit of an agoraphobic, where you don't want to go out into the world. And, it's a real rough spiral. And then on top of that, your digestive tract, because you're just consuming all kinds of things that are not healthy and not quality and not nourishing. You're impacted, your digestive tract is impacted, and your body is inflamed. And the next thing that happens is every time you move or get out of bed, everything hurts. And, the idea of walking around the block or exercising is so challenging because everything hurts. And, and then I'm staying in bed, it's a little bit psychosomatic, a little bit of, just intense inflammation and trauma in the body. And then you are not in the mood to get dressed and go to work. And now you're getting fired from jobs. And so that was my 20s and 30s. What I just described, that was my 20s and 30s. Lying to access food, hiding to access food, just constant pursuit of food, because it's that constant pursuit of that dopamine chase. And it's not, it's not a good existence. And I think that a lot of people on some level have some of that. And I think that for our folks that are morbidly obese and fighting the extreme food addiction, it's so real and it's so tough. And how do you even begin to process anything to get out of that? And I had a series of things that were going on. I had a boss that was really wonderful and loving and firm, and basically sat me down and said, I see you and you are a better person than this, and I expect more out of you. And she held my feet to the flame, and she is the reason I started therapy. And I started cognitive behavioral therapy. And in that process, I started realizing that I lie all the time. I'm also not only addicted to food, but addicted to lying, because I'm a pleaser. And I'm addicted to telling people what they want to hear. And I would literally, if you were to say you'd prefer to see me in a blue and red shirt, you'd be looking at me and I'd wear a different shirt. And I would say, that's blue and red, whatever you needed to hear to accommodate your position or ideas about me, I would support. And that became a spiral of lying. And then I started unfolding and unpacking a lot of these things through cognitive behavioral therapy, and realizing that there was a lot I was suppressing, and that my denial of who I am was creating a space where I was stuffing it all down, literally. And then around that time as well, my grandmother, who was my deep love best friend, she died at 72 from complications with arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And she was 72 years old. She died overweight and inflamed and too young. And I looked at the women in my family, and they were all, if they were 50, they looked 70. They all were heavy set, and they were all sick, fat, and dying. And I remember just grabbing my thighs, and grabbing myself and saying, we have a lot to do. You know, I was in my 30s at this point, and the idea of me being halfway done with my life was just not acceptable to me. And I started kind of, that started a momentum in me of saying, I come from women who haven't asked and required more. And the other thing too is there's this little voice in every single one of us that says all that is ours, our birthright on this planet, this everything that is ours, everything that we're entitled to, it's in there, you know, to be free and to be independent and to be alive and to move our bodies and to have vitality. It's in every single one of us. And when we say, oh no, I'm okay, I'm just a fat girl and I'm just gonna live like this. And this is just, you know, who I am. And I'm gonna come to terms and accept it. I mean, believe me, I came to terms with it over and over again, not ever fully in the depths of who I am, but externally. We're not actually coming to terms with it. We're saying, I'm so tired, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so frightened, I'm so fear of failure that I'm going to say, I'm going to buy into this idea. But that deeper voice was always saying there's more, and there's beauty inside of you, and there's life and vitality and passion, and there's this voice that people will want to listen to if they're not, if the, you know, heavy set issues aren't in the way. And so I wanted more on every category. And so it just became a process of thinking about these things. And at that point, and this is something I've shared with ReNee, at that point, I started thinking, okay, what can I control? What can I do? I can do a little bit better. I mean, like I go to these Italian restaurants and I like eat out all the time. And I loved Italian restaurants because it would be a basket of bread that would come before the meal. And, you know, I think when they saw me coming, they were upset because I would eat them out of bread. It was, you know, 3 and 4 baskets of bread that we would split at the table. And at that time, I was married to somebody else who was caught in their own health issues and disease of eating. And we would just consume and consume. And so I realized, you know, okay, 1 bread basket, that's the new rule. That's the new terms. Because I knew I couldn't just say bread's out. I knew I could, I'd tried it all. I had tried it all. And so I knew that I couldn't be perfect at it. But I was like, what's the one thing I can do? What's the little bit that I can do that's a little bit better? And not for the benefit of being thin or the benefit of looking like I'm in a magazine, but the benefit of just fueling myself with a little bit more love. What's the little, and that was 1 bread basket rather than 3 or 4. And then I got really good at that. You know, a few months went by and I had this regular habit of actually stopping, having a barrier, having a block, and being in control and stopping at 1 bread basket. That's not something I had ever been able to do at that point. I was just all consumption, no bumper. Got really good at that. And then I was like, okay, you eat 3 pieces of bread when you go to dinner. That's all you get. And, you know, now at this point in my life, I'm like, wow, I like this a lot. But that's where I was. And that's the beauty of the health coaching work that I do too, is that meet people where they are. Meet yourself where you are. Meet yourself where you are. And then I got really good at 3 pieces of bread. And then I realized, you know what? It's time for 1 piece of bread. And then within short order, I became a woman who didn't eat bread. I was overweight, consuming all these things, doing all these things that were not healthy. But I had the one. I was a woman who didn't eat bread. And what that did is it changed the narrative of who I was and how I looked at myself. Changing your own narrative is the most powerful thing you can do on this journey, I think, because then you become a woman who makes a decision and sticks to it, or a person. I don't know if we have guys in here too. I'm a woman, so I talk from that vantage point. But, you know, you stick to that one thing and you get really good at it. And then I did it with soda. And then I did it with candy. And then I did it with carbs. And then I also did this other thing where I started inserting, which I think is really important, is not necessarily taking away, but what are you putting in? Extra virgin olive oil. I got really religious about extra virgin olive oil. It was a huge part of my life. The polyphenols in that are amazing. What it's doing for your cellular structure is amazing. So I'm feeding in. And when you're nourishing, eating the rainbow, consuming healthy fats, you're starting to change your brain chemistry. And that's something I didn't touch on before, is the depression, the anxiety, the ADHD, the brain fog beyond. Like, I really felt like, am I just a stupid person? I'm just a stupid person. I can't come up with things like other people. I'm just dumb. I am not dumb. And you are not either. So if you have brain fog, just start feeding that brain. And when you're feeding that brain, you're changing your brain chemistry, your gut chemistry, and you're backfilling it with the good stuff. And lo and behold, you start craving less of the bad stuff. So then what you're doing is you're actually changing your gut microbiome and the ability for those good gut bugs to eat those bad ones that have the cravings and kick them out, which is just a huge journey. And so this is where my philosophy of Smidge A Day came from. It's just, what can I do today? So if it's, I'm in a place now where I'm pushing 50 and I've noticed that my muscles aren't showing up to the game like they used to. And so now it's like, okay, every time I get up from my desk, I'm going to do some lunges and some squats, 3 to 5, right? And that's going to add to that. So what are the little tiny habits that you can do that create that Smidge A Day space? And now, the other thing too that comes, people, ReNee and I talked about this weekend, the beauty is a byproduct of health and wellness. I remember when early years I'd be in like a place like Sprouts or Whole Foods, and these people were glowing and they looked vital, and I just wanted to be beautiful like them. And what I realized is that when you take the time to carve out that space of self-love, that's when the beauty comes. It can't be the reason. Has to be the reason is wanting more out of your whole experience, wanting more out of your whole journey. For me, what that meant was it opened me up to enough self-love and self-care that I changed the standard of how I'm treated. And that brought me to a place that I was able to leave an abusive relationship. It brought me to a place where I loved myself so much that if I ended up being on the journey alone, that would be sufficient, because I was so in love with myself and so supportive of myself that was going to be enough, because I could love myself better than anybody else. And I think that because of that space and that ease in my sense of self, it opened up a space where the man of my dreams came through that open door. And now I have a relationship that matches what I believe that I should be treated like. And that all started with me saying, what's one thing I can do to treat myself better? I'm going to eat a little less bread today. And then it changed that evolving narrative. And over time, in the last 10 years, I have manifested, created the life of my dreams. I have the home of my dreams. We travel. My body keeps up with it. A number of years ago, I couldn't keep up. I was so ill from the inflammation and the trauma in my body. Now I hike mountains. I mean, I literally hike mountains. And, just the ability to know that I'm worthy, I'm worth more. But it's a slow process. It's a process of honor and a process of nurturing. It's a process of growth. And you have to be willing to love yourself where you are right now with grace and understand, this is where I am. I can't, it's like driving a car across the country at night. You're leaving San Diego and you're driving to New York, and you can only see the end of your headlights. You can only see this much. New York is there. It's a city you want to get to and a city you want to experience, but you cannot see most of that journey. You don't need to. Just look at where you are right now. Look just a little ahead and take those steps. And when those steps are taken, it'll push you to the next space. That space will light up. The path will light up as it's time. But all you have to do is do today. And when today doesn't work out so good, go to bed. It's over. Take a nap, go to rest, shut down, give yourself grace, and give yourself that reset, and know that tomorrow will be more. And the other thing too in this is, like with smoking cessation or any other kind of habits you're trying to break that are cyclical. Eating is cyclical. Weight gain is cyclical. Anything that you're trying to create a new life. One of my favorite things I learned is, if you think about the telephone cords in the kitchen that loops and loops and loops, we all had them when we were younger. If you imagine that you're holding either end of that telephone cord and you're pulling on it, this is you working on your journey and yourself. You're pulling on it and pulling on it. When you first start out, it's really tight and those loops are frequent and you're in that scenario frequently. With time, slow, easy, intentional work on it, it begins to flatten out. And those bumps still will occur, but they'll become smaller and they'll become further between. And then with enough time, it'll actually just disappear. So you will have nearly a straight line. Is it perfect? No, because we're human. But I think it's an amazing analogy because it enables you to realize these bumps are going to happen. This journey is course correction. No flight goes straight. It's constantly getting back on. And I do that today. Honestly, I was telling ReNee that, I had a meal yesterday that was kind of out of the range of what I know is good for my body. And I woke up feeling puffy. And, and that's biofeedback. I'm going to use this biofeedback machine every single day, look at the mirror, assess it and go, okay, well, we need a little extra water and love and TLC today. And then I'm not going to have one of those little treat meals in the next couple of days. I'm going to let this body rest. But you get it to a baseline where you start to see what the bumps are. And I'm trying to think of anything else to share. I don't know if I've said enough or said too much, ReNee.
Oh my gosh, Katy Rose, you are just such a beautiful person inside and out. Your story is so inspirational. And you can tell by the way you talk about it, you're also an amazing health coach. I already know that, but some of the takeaways that I think that we can all appreciate is some of the things you said were so powerful. And number one, loving yourself and just creating those healthy boundaries that you can be your best advocate at all times, so you can really receive what you are meant to have. And
it's a journey. And at first you don't know how to do that. At first you don't know how to love yourself.
Right.
But you just start doing little tiny things that introduce the concept, right?
So beautiful. And the same with the habits, right? Just knowing that it doesn't all have to be done today. You don't have to get to New York today, right? We can do one thing at a time. And that's really what I've been talking about all week during our challenge, is just incorporating these ideas, these habits. It's what we do every day that really makes a difference. And each day adds up. And then we are changing the story. We are changing the narrative as we start becoming our own habits, our own healthy habits, right?
Yeah. And I think one of my biggest, one of my favorite things that I've learned over the years in the science of weight loss and weight gain is that it's, old news, fake news to talk calories in, calories out, that a calorie is a calorie, that you have to burn more than you take in. What we now know, and it's not widely talked about, but what we now know is that your adipose tissue and your fat cells are literally absorbing those toxic chemicals in your body and holding them and setting them aside. I'm going to set it right here on your saddlebag because I'm going to protect your bloodstream and your heart and your liver and your pancreas. It literally, fat gain, weight gain is a detox issue. And when we are, not putting in more toxins than we can release, when we're not, able to flush, right? It's about flushing out and not consuming more. And when we're able to balance our health, we are able to we just lose the weight. It literally falls off of us when we are eating clean And we can eat as much as we want, so if you're, I do still sometimes eat for comfort. I know what I'm doing and I acknowledge it, and it's like, okay, be mindful. But understanding that we have the ability to treat ourselves with health, and that's where the weight loss comes.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Katy Rose. Like, can you please share with our audience how people can find you, get a hold of you, know more about you? You're amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ReNee. My website is Katy Rose coaching. So it's KatyRose-coaching.com. My Instagram, Facebook, Twitter is all at a smidge a day, a smidge a day. I have to be honest, I'm not very active on Twitter. I'm not very good at it, but a lot of the stuff is on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. I think the Instagram has got the most data. But yeah, and you can just message me on any of those, and I'm happy to support and advise. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Katy. And
thank you for the work you do, ReNee. Women's hormone health is huge. It's a great topic, and there's so much to be done there. So much work to be done.
Well, and on this topic, the hormones of weight loss are often ignored too, because you're absolutely right. It's not calories in, calories out all the time. It can be toxins, inflammation, hormones. So always look for the root cause, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, great. Have a wonderful day. And thank you for watching. And thank you, Katy Rose, for being our guest today.
My pleasure. Thanks, ReNee.